FSU on Football 2019 in-depth game recap versus Florida. Here's the most in-depth recap of FSU football and their latest outing and what we learned from their loss against Florida. By the end of the first quarter in Saturday's regular season finale for the FSU football team against the hated rivals from Florida, there was hope that this game could get interesting with a tie at 7. By halftime, that hope was gone after the Gators put 23 points up in the second quarter alone. The final score, a 40-23 victory for the Gators for the first time at home in this series since the 2009 season, is going to be what people look at to say how far ahead the Orange and Blue are between these foes as the Seminoles now head to the next most important thing on the docket: naming a head coach for the 2020 season. But before that time comes, the Seminoles also know they will have at least one more game this season as they await word on what bowl game the FSU football team will be selected for. But before we can even know where the Noles are heading, here's a look at what we learned from FSU football's latest outing against the Gators. No. 1. The passing game was a lot of what we have seen so far this season for FSU football, as quarterback James Blackman threw for just 150 yards and several times threw the ball away or into double and triple coverage that has many wondering if he is going to be the man under center when the new coach comes in for next season. Number 2. One player who likely played his final game for the Seminoles since in the current state of college football. Stars tend to sit out bowl games that don't matter, went out in a big way as Cam Akers ran for over 100 yards on the day that included a long touchdown run. If this was his final game in the garnet and gold, the star running back went out the right way. Number 3. Heading back to the passing game for a moment. One that did not help Blackman, along with being sacked 8 times, was the lack of help he seemed to get from receivers. Yes, Tamorrion Terry did have 7 catches for 131 yards on the day but seemed to short-arm a few catches that could have led to touchdowns and maybe made the outcome a little bit closer. No. 4. In the preview for this game, we said that the main matchup was going to be how the FSU football pass defense did in trying to stop Florida quarterback Kyle Trask. 30 completions for 343 yards and 3 touchdowns later. It's safe to say that the pass defense failed miserably to go along with losing Homson Asiraldine to an injury and Cyrus Fagan to targeting on the day. Number 5 is for the rush defense. That was the one thing that kept this from being worse as the Seminoles held the Gators to just 77 yards on the ground on 25 carries, numbers that are even better when you consider that 49 of those yards on 11 carries came from the quarterbacks for Florida. So they have that going for them. Number 6 is for special teams. The Seminoles saw what we all thought we were going to see in the game from kicker Ricky Aguayo, making just 50% of his field goal attempts that make us count down the days until his time is done. As for the punting game, props go out to Tommy Martin with his nearly 44-yard average per kick into that went over 50 yards. Extra point well for the first time since the 1985 and 1986 seasons. The FSU football team is dealing with back-to-back seasons where they were swept by their intrastate rivals as both the Gators and Miami Hurricanes have made the Seminoles realize that, at the moment at least, we're third among the big 3 programs in the state. For now, the big question in the coming week is going to be who the next leader for the Seminoles is going to be for the coming seasons, and from there, the Noles can turn their attention toward a bowl game and getting back to hopefully a winning season after the disaster that took place in 2018. Going for 2 now. We wrote about this a couple of weeks ago and I had really stood by the statement that interim head coach Odell Haggins should have gotten the head coaching job on a permanent basis had they beat the Gators. While the chances are extremely slim after what took place in the game, it still is something that should at least be considered at this point if a decision is not going to be made in the coming days as to who will be the head coach in 2020.